Well, a new wage system based on workers' productivity in the civil service is in the works. The government says the system would allow workers on the same level to earn different salaries. The Director General of the National Productivity Center, Nasser Raji Mustafa, says the system is being considered because productivity is a key factor in the growth of the country's economy.
Well, let's bring in David Adejoh, who's the Director of the Productivity Measurement Index at the National Productivity Center. Good to see you and thanks for your time. It looks very much like what a lot of people have always talked about, especially in the civil service. Well, with due respect to those who are hardworking, you find some people, in fact, they got to a point people will say, why don't you go to the civil service so that you can join this job with this and do this. So speak to us the intention of what this tends to achieve at the end of the day.
All right. By way of background, I think you all know that there's a perception in Nigeria that this public service, like you just said, is actually not performing, right? And compared to the private sector, there's a perception in Nigeria that the private sector performs better than the public sector. Now, you know, in Nigeria, the citizens' demands for increased services has increased. And there are fiscal pressures upon government. And the number of people government has to pay every year has put pressure on fiscal resources. And that has cost the National Productivity Sector to actually sit and look at performance vis-a-vis wage system. And then we developed this productivity link wage system. What it's actually supposed to do is it's a system that will reward performance differentials, that's productivity differentials across individuals and across organizations. So the wage system is not only for individuals or workers or employees of the public sector, it's also for organizations in the public sector. So it's a two-tier solution, both for organizations and then for individuals. The aim of it is to actually create a consciousness for productivity and service delivery in the public sector. That's the bottom line.
Right. I mean, before you can talk about productivity, it means that the employer, whether it's the federal government or whoever, provides all the essential tools, you know, for productivity to happen. Is that not the first place to start? Because every now and again, you have public workers complaining that they don't have the tools, you know, to be productive.
Thank you very much for that question. But I would like to tell you that there's no system in the world that provides everything.
It may not be
As
everything,
a matter of
but to a
fact,
large
when
extent.
everything is available,
Right.
creativity is absent. All right? There should be critical equipment tools. And to the best of my knowledge, a lot of agencies in Nigeria have critical equipment and tools. I am a productivity measurement person in the National Productivity Center. I have conducted extensive surveys. Yes, in recent times, there have been people who have been idle in public service. That you cannot hide, you know. But when it comes to performing core functions of this service, there are enough or critical tools that can actually help public service agencies perform.
What specific tools really? And have you tried to find out exactly why this level of low productivity?
Yes. First of all, I must tell you that in Nigeria, there's a general low level of service consciousness. Nigerians generally, whether in the private sector or in the public sector, it's not only in the public sector. For instance, you get into a taxi, the way a taxi man treats you, you see that he does not have that consciousness for service delivery. In the public sector too, those things are absent. All right. In order to bring this thing, and then knowing that people always gravitate towards high performance when they know there's an incentive, especially a financial incentive. All right. And when it comes to tools, you know, most of the public sector organizations are divided into departments and all that. It is not every person in the public sector organization that plays a critical role. Some people play subordinate roles, others play very critical roles. Now, if you concentrate your resources to those who play the very critical role, And then you design your work in such a way that those who don't have resources play roles that do not require them to have too much. I'm not saying that people work without resources, but in order to achieve, knowing very well the kind of nation we are and the lack of resources, you can actually strike a balance and then be able to offer even if you don't have what you call adequate resources.
Well, David Adejoh, let's call a spade a spade. It's only a Nigerian who's trying not to say the truth that will be saying that I don't understand what he's saying. We've heard in public and private sector this, what you want to call jargon or slang. Why you carry this work for your head? Now your papa work. And at the end of the day, those who are creative, those who are very industrious, they are laughed at and ultimately never rewarded. But you saying this is some sort of incentive that will help the person, irrespective of your cadre, your level, you get what you reap what you sow.
Yes.
So in this case, how do you gauge performance? Because that's another problem that a lot of people would be asking. How do we get out of this?
All right, thank you very much. Basically, the methodology for gauging performance is twofold. First of all, the work is actually evaluated, right? And key result areas and targets are set. Then key performance indicators are determined. Those key performance indicators are tied to the targets that you're supposed to achieve. That will give you one component of the productivity linkage system, which is the key KPI score. Then there's another component, which is called the competency component. It is not about what you have achieved, but also how you're able to achieve it. The competency actually takes care of that. So the KPI, what you achieve, the targets you achieved, is actually scored at a 70 to 30% ratio. The KPI score takes a 70%, and then the competency cluster takes 30%. Now, an aggregate of these two, for instance, if you're a lecturer, right? Yes, you have your workload. A lecturer, for instance, is expected to teach a certain number of people, log in some credit units or credit hours of teaching people. Is expected to make publications. Is expected to supervise postgraduate, undergraduate studies. All these things are given targets, all right? They're given targets. If he gets it, those targets are weighted according to priority, right? When they are weighted, they are now rated. The weight and the rate is multiplied to give you what we call an average score. That average score is aggregated to give you a KPI score. Then we go to the competency cluster. A lecturer has to be evaluated even by his own students.
Yes.
Right? So we have what we call a student satisfaction survey. That is also going to be quantified. The lecturer also needs to have communications, good communication skills, people skills, leadership skills, mentoring skills. All these skills that are based on the competency clusters are also identified, weighted, and scored. Right? The students actually give us this. Then you add these two together and get what we call an aggregate score. When you get that aggregate score, there's a chart that we have developed where these performance differentials are going to be.
When is this likely to take off? When does it start?
Well, currently we have just brought out what we call a conceptual paper. We expect that public sector agencies like the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission will go through it, will have reviews, and then fine-tune the models in order to make it actually ready. And then we pilot it before government can actually implement it. That's the plan.
Engineer David Adejoh, Director of Productivity Measurement Index, National Productivity Center. I will expect to have you back here.